to Ethical Exits, everyone. The podcast that dives into M&A for mission-driven companies rocking the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and profits. I'm Caitlin, and I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Hannah, and we're really pumped to kick off this series with you. And when we want to talk about the inspiration and the purpose behind this podcast, what both of us saw, right, is a real need for more transparency and education in the M&A world, especially for entrepreneurs who care about, like I said before, people, planet, and profits. So what our goal is to break down really the complexities and share real stories from those who've really been there and who've really been through it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about launching this with you, Caitlin. I think there's so much need and so much benefit that we can bring to the community, and we're just happy to be a part of it. And the crazy thing that I learned just most recently is the reason why B-Corps exist and why it's even a movement is because Bart, one of the co-founders for the B-Corp movement, and now there's like 6,000 B-Corps globally. It's crazy, right? And I don't even think that B-Corps is even 20 years old yet. But it's because Bart sold his business, very successful business, and won. Many of you might be familiar with that basketball shoe brand. When they were kind of at the height of their success, they had built a really cool model. They had built a really great company culture. They had a whole ethical supply chain. They were doing the triple bottom line thing before triple bottom line was like really even an ethos or a business philosophy. And they built their business up to $250 million in top line revenue. They took on some capital in order to get there, right? Because of course, building a shoe company takes a lot of capital when you have to have inventory and produce product. And they got to a point where they wanted to sell, right, for personal reasons, and for the management team, they felt like it was time to move on. And at that time, before the B certification was around, and because they took on capital, they had to it was their fiduciary duty. There was no other option. They could not evaluate a suitor based on whether or not they were aligned with how they built the company, or if they had the same ideas around what a business should be. If a business should be a force for good, they had to take just the best offer. Right? That was their fiduciary duty. And Bart told the story most recently on Dart Lindsay's podcast, that company was bought for a good amount, good potential suitor when you're looking just at the top line or the bottom line dollar. But very quickly, that company that acquired and won very quickly dismantled everything that actually made the company great. Right? The culture, the ethical supply chain, their philanthropic contributions to educational charities. They dismantled all of that very quickly, let go of all the staff, which many are familiar with. If you've ever been a part of, or you just read the news, right? When there's an acquisition, typically terrible things happen to the employees. And very quickly, that company went from $250 million in top line revenue to $40 million in just 3 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Heartbreaking. Right?
So heartbreaking. That's insane.
It is really brutal. And it just kind of highlights, the reputation that M&A has is kind of earned for all the wrong reasons. Like a lot of people, even today, are acquiring companies and in kind of like a vulture capitalism way, eating them alive from the inside out. And that's very painful for the people who are involved, and certainly towards the mission and the values of these companies. So that became the seed for the B Corp movement. So we're super excited to provide any service in this space, because sometimes it's just necessary to go through a business transaction, either to sell a business or to buy a business. There's lots of reasons, and a lot of them are really good reasons, right? Especially when we're talking with and working with companies that care about the environment. I do feel a sense of urgency, and there is a lot of benefits to combining with another entity to grow your market share basically overnight, in contrast to an organic growth process, to amplify your impact, right? And to make these options more viable for a wider consumer base. That is done through growth, right? So there's a lot of reasons why people are looking to do that. So this podcast and this whole initiative is really geared around 4 drivers, right? Where we see we can offer value, and we hope that this podcast and the community that we create through this podcast can help to stimulate. And that is, first, right? We believe there's tremendous opportunities for B Corps to partner together. So providing opportunities for sellers, right, to come together, to come on the podcast and tell their story about why they're looking to sell and who they're looking to partner with. For buyers to come on the show and talk about how they're looking to grow and who they hope to partner with for a strategic acquisition. And also people who support M&A transactions. So M&A advisors, investment banks, impact investors, folks who have knowledge and skills and can provide tangible feedback, guidelines, strategies on how to pursue an ethical exit. Those are the folks we're really looking to highlight, right? Because we think that there's just so much opportunity for 1 + 1 = 3 interactions within the community. And even directly outside the community. You don't have to be a B-Corp in order to participate in a mission-driven exit, right? So we think that there's so many opportunities to highlight. We want to provide a platform for that. We also want to educate and demystify the space, right? It's a complicated space and it's surrounded by a lot of FUD. So what can we do to help share strategies, knowledge, and information to help folks navigate the process more confidently? That's certainly a big goal of ours with this podcast. And then to encourage and promote transparency in the process. I kind of touch on that just a moment ago, but a lot of M&A happens in the dark, right? Or in locked rooms or in boardrooms that a lot of people don't have access to. So how do we provide, or can we provide, a safe space through this podcast for folks to come on and talk about that just in a transparent way? We think that there's a lot of value in that. And then lastly, correlated to that, creating a community. Right? A community for the B-Corp movement, for mission-driven entrepreneurs to come on, learn from each other, share their stories, and provide experience and innovative options or strategies to really pursue an ethical exit. So there's a lot there. We think that there's a lot of opportunity to share and just to provide a good space for people where they can feel comfortable coming on and sharing their stories and experience.
Yeah, absolutely, Hannah. I think you broke that down perfectly. We're all about, like you said, educating our listeners, especially for those that are passionate about ethical and sustainable business practices. Because to your point, it's a really intimidating space. And it's a space that you don't see that often because these deals are made, like you said, in these close, secluded boardrooms. But, when it comes to another point of yours, like transparency is key. We want to demystify the process and share these real stories and insights from the field. We want to build a community of, like-minded individuals who care about fostering connections among mission-driven businesses or B-Corp certified businesses. So it's all really about coming together to learn, grow, and just make a positive impact. That's why we're here, right? And that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I think our first guest, our launch guest, Sarah, will be a great aid to that. So you want to tell everybody about Sarah?
Yes, I'm very excited about Sarah. We're both very excited. But our first guest is Sarah Holdeman, the co-founder and COO of the Impact Collective based out of Portland, Oregon. And what the Impact Collective does is they focus on social impact consulting and leadership coaching. They just help purpose-driven organizations create strategies for long-term impact and effect. So what I really love about Sarah, after getting to know her a little bit, is that she really brings a fresh perspective of growth and really emphasizes the importance of mission-driven impact over just financial gains, right? So, Sarah, learning more about her career to date, she spent a few years in tech startups where they were just prioritizing profit. And she just saw that there was a need for a better way. And now as vice chair of the B Local PDX board, she's championing the B Corp movement in the Pacific Northwest. So, Sarah just really brings a diverse background in food and beverage and tech startups, which I think really gives her a unique take on driving that meaningful change that we're trying to do here in Ethical Exits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sarah can provide a lot of foundational understanding of how to even put a framework together. Now that you have a mission-driven company, right? And that's what her company does, the Impact Collective. She helps companies become one, right? To put together their values and missions in a triple bottom line structure. How do you maintain that moving forward through an acquisition? Right? How do you properly vet a business? What does that framework look like? So I think Sarah will be amazing. So super excited to have her. And then, Caitlin, this isn't just going to be your standard podcast. There are a lot of podcasts out there, but I do think it is unique because we're going to talk specifically about M&A throughout this podcast and share stories about how to pursue a business transaction or how to complete one. We don't lose everything at the end, right? You get to continue your mission and accelerate your impact. But the other thing we want to do with this podcast that I think is a little bit different, I haven't seen others do it, and I'm really excited about it, is we also believe as a profit for purpose business at Up and Over that everything that we do should have a philanthropic element. Everything that we do should be a vehicle to help scale philanthropy or to help solve real problems. So we're taking that to the podcast as well. So one of the things that we'll do at the end of every episode, we'll ask every single one of our guests to name a charity or an organization that's close and dear to their hearts, share more information about that charity, educate our audience about that charity, and then we'll also provide links where our guests, our listeners can learn more and even perhaps give to those charities. So super excited about that. I think we're going to learn a lot about a ton of different niche charities that are, maybe micro in these communities or are quite meaningful to our guests. So really excited about that angle as well.
Yes. We are all about giving back. Just besides sharing M&A insights, we really want to spotlight and support these awesome charities. A few awesome charities that we've already heard about from the few first guests that we have coming on the podcast. So we're really here to just inspire and get everyone involved in making a difference. So I'm really excited about that part of the launch. But we invite you to subscribe to Ethical Exits on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on social media. We want this to be a really interactive experience. So feel free to share your stories or suggest topics you'd like us to cover. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, or if you want to share your story, you want to be a guest, go to ethicalexits.com, fill out our contact us form. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to share your stories and make this platform work for you.
Absolutely. And we can't wait to share more with you in our first full episode where we'll be chatting with Sarah. So stay tuned and thank you for joining us on this exciting journey. Woo!
Excited, Caitlin.
Very exciting.